So the first words of Pirkei Avos is Moshe Kibel Torah Sinai. That's how the Mishnah begins. And there's an obvious question over here. Why Sinai? Why not Moshe Kibel, I should say Torah, I'm missing the word Torah here. Moshe received the Torah from
the Lord.
From Hashem, from the Holy One, blessed be He, or something like that. It's very strange. The rest of the text says Moshe gave it over to Yeshua, who gave it over to the elders and the prophets until the men of the great assembly. So why not the first step also say from who we got it, which is Hashem? So not just would it be more consistent, but it's also more appropriate. You didn't get it from a mountain. True, that was the location, but it seems so not important to focus on that and so not consistent. It's a very strange nuance. So that's question number one. Clear?
Yes.
So to explain this, we're going to digress a little bit, but it's all connected and we're going to get back to it, okay? Just remember this question.
It says Moshe Kibbutz me'akadosh Baruch Hu.
No.
That's what it says in the...
Whatever, Moshe Kibel Torah, I should have said, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Maybe add in Torah.
I said it. I mentioned that I should add the word Torah. Okay. So, who remembers this? We learned this before Pesach. 5 ways how chametz is uniquely severe compared to most other food restrictions in Torah, in Judaism. We learned 5 ways. What?
Can't see it. No, see it.
You are allowed to see it. Your first one is not correct.
It's but not about the
Kares.
What?
It's not about the position.
Let's explain. Let's see what I found. Okay, number 1. There is a mitzvah to destroy it. Most things are in like prohibitions of foods we're not allowed to have. It's forbidden to eat it. There's no positive mitzvah to destroy it. But chametz has a verse that says that on the eve of Pesach, the afternoon before Pesach, they have a positive mitzvah to destroy chametz. 2. Severity. This is what Ezzy meant to say when he said you can't see it. It actually means it shall not be seen in your possession. It shall not be able to be seen in your possession, which means it should not exist in your possession, which means you shouldn't own it. So that's why I wrote, there's a prohibition to own it. That does not apply to most non-kosher food restrictions, right? But chametz has that severity. It's forbidden to benefit from it. Again, most prohibitions, not all, but most things that are forbidden to eat, you're still allowed to benefit from it, right? Like you could play football. I don't know if they still make it from a pigskin, but it's nothing problematic about it. You're not eating it, right? Okay, this is mentioned. Someone mentioned this. It's liable to kares, which is a spiritual excommunication of the soul. Most, not all, but most food prohibitions are just lashes or just a prohibition without. But this is considered a severe spiritual consequence, and chametz is one of the few forbidden foods that receives this severe consequence.
Is kares?
No, but it is forbidden benefit. And the 5th one is, this I think someone said before. The 5th one is that even a minuscule amount is forbidden. Usually the ratio is 1 to 60. That if a drop of milk falls in a big challah pot, it's like a teaspoon in a big pot. If it's 60 times the amount, and it's mixed in and it's lost, it's kosher most of the time, for most prohibitions. But chametz is one of the few on Pesach, it does not get nullified. So there you have it. 5 ways how chametz is uniquely severe. Okay? Are you ready to continue?
Yeah. I'm completely engrossed.
What's the deeper source for this? I'm going to review something we discussed a little bit before Pesach, because it's a good review. why are we so extreme with chametz? What does it represent? Who remembers? Remember what chametz? Theme of Pesach is? Yeah, yeshus, very good. It's going out of Mitzrayim. And what's the worst? Mitzrayim means, right, boundaries, things that stop us, that hold us back from becoming better, right? We had a whole class about this, so I'm going to do it a little quicker. Anything that stops your spiritual growth is a form of Mitzrayim. That's what Mitzrayim means. Mitzrayim, not just a geographic location, it means it's a concept in our lives that we all deal with. The worst form of Mitzrayim is what? Is ego, an unhealthy obsession with yourself, unhealthy focusing on yourself, right? What's in it for me, or what do people think about me, or why are things not going my way? All these things come from ego, and I'll show you some more problems that come from it. And this is considered the classic and the most extreme or severe expression of Mitzrayim that messes up. This causes all our problems. Let's see. For example, right? All these issues, worrying, frustration, anger, resentment, getting insulted. The worst of all makes it so difficult to accept criticism, which means the worst curse of all, because you can't. It's hard to grow and to prove. You can't admit that you have to, that you're not perfect and you did things wrong and you have what to work on. And the ego causes you to counterattack and deflect everything and to not take in, right? All this anger, resentment is it's not going my way. You think you're in charge. It all comes from an unhealthy ego, unhealthy sense of self. This is expressed in the words and the foods. Remember we did this also before Pesach? Chametz and matzah. The only difference between the chametz and the matzah, first, let's do the letters first. The fes and the hay. But this is different only because it's at the end of the word. But really it's a tzaddik, right? But the fes and the hay are different letters. They both have an opening body. You know why? Because everyone messes up. All human beings fall. That's the opening on the body. The difference is the ches has no other option. It only has the option of falling. The hay has an opening on top that doesn't have to go down. It could also, why? Because if you have bittul, the humility, you could fix, you could admit, you could accept criticism, you could grow, you could work on yourself. But we said that the food, this is the same water, the same flour, but it's full of hot air, empty air, space. It's false sense of your ego, inflated sense of self, that you're in charge and things should be going your way, you're entitled, and everything's focusing on yourself causes all the problems.
I'm sorry. What? How does hay represent bittul?
What?
How does the hay represent?
What I shared now was that it represents the option of not just you don't have fallen, but you have a way to get out. Let me share with you a great story because of your question.
How did it? And
I'm gonna share a story to answer your question. There was
I always accept stories.
there was a businessman in the early years of the Rebbe's Nasius. I think it was close to Fidiker also, and the Rebbe gave him advice, and he didn't listen. A certain business venture that he asked the Rebbe about. It was very tempting, I think, and the Rebbe told him, "Don't do it," and he didn't listen. I was trying to say it nicer. He thought whatever. He tried to wiggle around, and he went for the business deal. And as you can imagine, it didn't really work out so well. And he ended up losing everything, and even ending up in debt. And the whole thing fell apart. The whole project, the whole business venture was on the ground and was in big trouble. So he went into Yechidus again, and he told the Rebbe, "I want to tell you a story." I think it was Rabbi Yankel Katz, and he had a special relationship with that. He told her, "I want to tell you a story," and he said, "Back in the shtetl, the old world, there was all different types of Jews, and there was also the Shtat Ganef, the local thief. And not to be confused with any other religions, but he would make his rounds on the rooftops and go down chimneys to visit different houses. He had his different his routes. He would go. And that's how he would support himself, support his family. He would go in through the chimneys usually, and he would come and borrow a few things. Sometimes forget to pay for them, and he would sneak back out. And that was his schedule. He would roam the city at night, and he would go from the rooftops, and he would sneak down into the houses. One night, as luck would have it, it's hard to tell maybe from the top. It's like, here's a house, I didn't go to this part of town, I've never been here, let's try. He goes in, and he doesn't know it's the rabbi's house. And he's going in, it's already not so exciting, because he has no idea, but there's not much to steal. But its luck gets even worse. As he's climbing down the chimney, there's a nail sticking out, and his pants get stuck on it. And he's trying to go, and it's stuck. So he's pulling and pushing, and then finally he tears his thing, and he goes crashing through, makes a whole noise, a bunch of soot and bricks and things go flying, and there's a big commotion and a big mess, and he's smoke and dirt, and he comes crawling out, and the fireplace opens right into the rabbi's desk in his study. The rabbi's sitting there and learning. And he comes like crashing through, and he comes up, he looks at, he's looking right into the rabbi's face. And the rabbi like looks at him startled, like, can I help you? It's so he like kommen zu fragen the Rav a Shaila. I came to ask the rabbi a question. What's the question? Wie kriegt man von da nach Reis? How do you crawl out of here? And the person tells the Rebbe the story, and he ends off with that, with those words. How do I crawl out of the situation? Like when I'm in now. And the Rebbe smiled and told him whatever he told him. I don't even know. The point was I'm sharing is that's the hole to crawl out of. You hear? That's the difference in the hay and the ches. It has an option somewhere to crawl out of the situation. When the ches doesn't have bittul, cannot accept criticism, he's stuck. He has to keep just messing up and attacking other people and putting others down to feel good, and he can't really work on himself. But if you have the humility, you could acknowledge that you messed up and you're at fault sometimes, or usually. Then you could talk about spiritual growth, which is the meaning of Yetzias Mitzrayim. I don't want to go so much into this. I just wanted to refresh the concept that chametz represents yeshus and gaiva, which is the worst kind of klipa. Now let's go to another point. How does the Ramban explain the prohibition of some non-kosher foods? I actually want to do a little bit about kosher. We had in the parsha, it was Pesach time, but we should talk about that. But how the Ramban explains, we know the Torah doesn't give reasons for the prohibitions. But the Ramban says something fascinating. Well, a lot at once. He says, you are what you eat. You are what you eat. I don't want to let it this
Oh, look at that guy.
This is pretty serious. Someone has a good imagination. Here they're also fighting. Okay. The basic point that Ramban says, I'm not going to go into so much now, he gives a lot of details, but this explains a lot of some of the kosher laws, and the restrictions that certain species were allowed to eat and certain things not, certain animals not. And he said it has to do with the character traits and nature, just something about the soul of what you're eating goes into you. And that's why all the predators, he says all the kosher animals at least, birds are not ones that hunt others.
Why can't we be
Now
birds?
they're not mean. They're just doing their nature. But it has to have a very cruel nature or heartless nature. They hunt and they eat animals alive and they do all these cruel things. Now, not only that, it could be, we don't even know. He doesn't say every animal, exactly what's the, but you have to, have a certain achzarius, a certain cruelty or heartlessness or to be able to hunt and just eat, and it just wants food. It's doing what it's programmed to do, but you don't want to get that kind of nature. Or it could be, there's so many other things. Maybe the way they treat their young, they don't have, maybe they're lazy or they're patient, or they don't have patience, or we don't know. There's certain character traits in all the non-kosher animals that that could a little bit affect us in a spiritual sense. I have a kosher class presentation that maybe we'll do one day that I elaborate a lot more on these with sources. But this is what the Ramban says, that a lot of the kosher thing has to do because it's negative character traits, and mainly the ones that are predators. They have something vicious and cruel about them that you don't want to get that. So we don't eat these these foods. That's what the Ramban says. So this whole intro leads us to a very big question. Why isn't chametz forbidden the entire year? Pork, elephant, I don't know, uh,
Octopus.
octopi, right? Octopi. Yeah, you can't eat them a whole year. When it comes to chametz, which we said represents such the worst klipa. Yes, remember the 5 ways how extreme we are. You don't even find that by most other prohibitions, and yet chametz is only for a week biblically prohibited. Nowadays, outside the Holy Land, we do 8 days, but the rest of the year, it's okay. How can you explain that? This is question number 2.
Not just that, but it's also a mitzvah.
Oh, I think that's the next slide.
Oh,
Or the next click. You see what appeared?
yeah,
He's a Navi. He knew exactly.
I was here. I remember you.
Last week? Oh yeah? But I added the part. Okay. So why is it a mitzvah on Shavuos? I thought you say you learned the Sikha recently. So on Shavuos it's even a mitzvah to have chametz. The 2 breads that are brought at the conclusion of the Omer count. Remember we had the whole class about the Omer, the way it's presented in the Torah? So on Shavuos it's even a mitzvah. I thought chametz represents all the worst character traits and evil. We said that all those 5 ways how it's so severe because it's so bad, and yet the whole year it's permitted. Why is chametz not kosher the rest of the year? Why isn't it like pork or shellfish or anything else that should be non-kosher because it represents some kind of spiritual, not just represents, it actually contains a kind of spiritual danger, an unhealthy spiritual ingredient that could affect our soul, like all unkosher food. That's our second question. Who remembers the first question?
The one where you just showed us?
No?
Why is it chametz forbidden during time?
No, that's our now
The first question, for the whole thing?
in the beginning of the class.
Yeah, it was, doesn't it say the Torah came from Hashem, it's
Oh.
outside of.
Good. I want to make sure you didn't forget that one. Very good. So we had a question about the beginning of the opening phrase of Pirkei Avos, that we read the Torah from Sinai. And now we went into a whole discussion, and now we have another interesting question.
Do we ever connect both?
Yeah, listen. So why we have now a question about why is chametz permitted the rest of the year? It seems to be such a bad thing. Yeah. Okay. One more question. Not this. This is an intro. Why was Har Sinai chosen? I hope everybody heard that they know all the songs. Why was Har Sinai chosen to be the
It was small and
source, the place where Hashem revealed Himself and gave the Torah? It says because it was a humble mountain. It wasn't the biggest, it wasn't the tallest, it wasn't the majestic, it wasn't fancy, and because it was humble, it says Hashem chose it. It says similarly the thorn bush. Okay.
We can find this mountain today.
It's actually they do have a lot of ideas of very serious theories about which mountain it was. There's in Gemara Saita, I think page 5 or 4 or 5, and then 5, I think it talks about humility a lot, and it talks about mentioned this idea that Har Sinai was chosen because of its humility. But here's my question for you. This is the question I want to focus on. Why not a valley? Who needs a mountain at all? If it's about humility, then what you're going, you're taking a mountain, but you're taking a humble mountain. Just take a valley, take a flat plain. don't have any issues. Yeah, but we're saying it was chosen because of its lower stature, because it represents humbleness. Yeah. Let me explain, you'll see. We're gonna tie it all in. So let's see.
I was gonna guess it.
So that's our question number 3. Let's recap. Now we have 3 questions. Ezzy number 1,
Matan Torah.
why does it say Moshe received the Torah from Sinai? Question 2, why is Chametz submitted a whole year? And what was question 3?
Why
Why
not?
do we comments on Shavuos? Oh,
Why not?
That's part of 2. You're not wrong with it. Why not a valley? Why a mountain at all? So here is the explanation, okay? It's not so simple. When we said ego is so terrible, it's actually more complicated. There's a balance between, here I put it, humility and confidence. It's a very fine balance. Not all ego is unhealthy. Unhealthy ego is terrible. You're obsessed with yourself, you struggle with your self-worth, and therefore you're bragging or showing off or doing things for others or focusing on yourself so much because you're trying to get validation. All that comes from unhealthy ego. But there's a good self-esteem and a sense of yourself. And that's a good kind of ego that's very helpful and important. The first thing in Shulchan Aruch, that means it's the first thing in Judaism. It mentions is you have to be bold like a leopard, strong and proud, like courage, like a leopard. You have to have altis baish not to be embarrassed for those that mock you. It's the first thing in Judaism, in the code of Jewish law and in the abridged code of Jewish law. The Kitzur brings it. Alter Rebbe starts off one of the times, one of his editions with these words. The first thing that's brought is you have to be proud and confident, and other people's comments and looks and sneers and the mockery should be able to bounce off you. You should not be able to should have that confidence what you're doing, who you are. This is very healthy, and this is very important.
from the Kaaba.
This is also in Pirkei Avos in chapter 4 and 5, but in the Shulchan Aruch it's the first thing. In order to grow spiritually, you have to have a healthy ego. The worst thing is it could happen, you could be by Farbrengen, a Shabbos meal, and they talk about these great stories of great rabbis and great Jews that were so special, the way they did their mitzvahs or their learning or the way they treated other people. The worst thing to do is to have this reaction. Who am I to aspire to this thing? Those were great, great holy people. No, the point is you have to have like an ego. You have to have always, whenever you hear something, like you have to be thinking, I got to go in this direction. I might not be holding there now, but I could be there. I could work on this. Maybe I could learn. I won't learn as much, but I could, go try to learn that much or pray or be so nice to others and so sensitive. Whenever you hear things, you have to have a certain ego in order to grow. If you always just like think, who am I? I'm a nothing, then you're never going to be able to grow spiritually. That's another concept that you see you need to have ego in order to grow in Avodas Hashem. Another thing. So the truth is this balance is expressed. This is one of my classic slides I bring a lot. Humility is not thinking less of yourself, that I am bad and low and I'm not worthy or I'm not deserving and I don't have ability. No, it's thinking of yourself less, meaning it's not all about me. It's not about what's in it for me. You're not focusing on yourself. You're not obsessed with what people thinking about me. Right? You're able to think about others. What can I do for God today? What can I do for my friend? You're able to focus on others. There was a chassid of the Alter Rebbe who says he was a Beinoni through gaiva, through arrogance, through yeshes. He was able to be a Beinoni. A Beinoni means he controlled himself in behavior, thought, speech, and action. Maybe he didn't change his personality, but self-control he had how? By using the ego. Whenever the Yetzer Hara would come to him and say, "No, let's do something," he would say, "How dare you suggest such a selfish, animalistic behavior to me? I'm so insulted. I'm a great chassid of the Alter Rebbe, and you come and suggest I shouldn't, do proper davening this morning, or proper preparation for davening, or I should waste my time and start learning late, or I should, not keep my word. Whatever the Yetzer Hara would suggest to him, and he recognized, he would like tell himself, I'm a chassid of the Alter Rebbe. I learned Chassidus. I went to Fabrea. Like I'm involved in this. I'm not gonna go there. He used ego to actually have self-control, the Beinoni, to be that level. So all these things I'm showing you now is that really it could be very holy and it's very important. And this is why chametz is kosher most of the year, because it really is necessary. But how do you have the right balance? How do you do it properly? Well, and what about Pesach? Why is it forbidden? That's the key. In order to have the healthy ego the whole year, to be able to have that pride, that confidence, to always growing, always having that self-control, all in a good way, a healthy ego, you have to start off with Pesach. Pesach is the birth of the Jewish people. It represents the beginning. The beginning is the foundation. This represents the foundation of our relationship with Hashem. In order to have a healthy sense of pride, you have to have a foundation of bittul, of surrender and suspending yourself. Then you can have a healthy ego afterwards. First, you have to get rid of it in an extreme way. This explains why for 1 week it's very extreme, but then the rest of the year it's embraced and even becomes a mitzvah on Shavuos. Because if you have a good foundation of bittul, in order to make it bittul that it's not about me in an unhealthy way, you have to totally get rid of that. And then you could use it in a healthy way. All those healthy ways that we said about using the ego to grow in Avodas Hashem. After that, ego can be healthy and helpful. Therefore, chametz is permitted after Pesach, and it's even a mitzvah on Shavuos. Okay. Oh, I'm missing a slide here. What about our other questions? We answered. We explained very well the Pesach, the conundrum about the chametz, the whole versus Pesach the rest of the year. What about our other questions?
About the valley, because it's important to have a little bit.
And the first thing, what was?
This one is the only thing we haven't explained. Why?
No, the valley. Oh, that's you. I didn't explain that either. That answers both. So why was a valley not chosen? Because it's not so simple. You have to have a mountain. You have to have that pride. You have to be strong, and
I am a chassid
you have to have You have to feel that, and you have to be proud that you're a Jew. Someone the Rebbe once told someone you have to be more besimcha, and he told the Rebbe, like, why should I be? What is it to be besimcha about it? He obviously was struggling. The Rebbe said, "What do you mean you're a Jew?" That was the first response. Interesting. You have to realize that. Anyway, so you have to have that proudness, that pride, that strength, that confidence. That's represented by a mountain, but a humble mountain, but not that unhealthy ego, but a good ego. That's why it's in the middle. And now we go back to the first question. Moshe Kibel Torah Sinai. What does Torah mean? A lesson. Torah means a guiding, a lesson. He learned a lesson from the mountain Sinai, this whole class that we just did. He learned from Sinai this balance, that Sinai was chosen, that it was a mountain, but a humble mountain, about this healthy path, this of balance in our relationship with Hashem, which is the first thing in Shulchan Aruch. This is the beginning. Moshe learned this concept from Sinai. Not from Hashem, from Hashem's choosing of Sinai. It's teaching you a side point, but an important idea. But it's a side insight about our relationship with Hashem, that you have to have that drive and that confidence, and at the same time, it shouldn't be obsessed with yourself and doubting yourself and then having to compensate and so on. All the unhealthy effects of ego. This is the little class I want to do today. Once a week, I'm going to try to do with you Pirkei Avos more in depth, like what we